What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Crunch Time. It is the late night edition, the quiet storm, as some call it. Joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. You know the drill. We don't care what time it is. We're giving you the goods either way. We got my guy Squirrel in the house, one of the greatest tournament players of all time. What up, Squirrel?
Hey, not much. Weird late night slate here, but good to be hanging out with you guys right before the break.
Yeah, and we've got some value, right? It's not just like three generic blah games, right? There's a little something to it, isn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah. Memphis is like decimated by injuries as they have been all year, and they're just kind of rotating. They've got like a rotating door of 9 guys they're trying to like get in every game. And so so they've got, but it's good. You know, it seemed like we got the injury news before lock, so it wasn't like right before lock, so that's good.
Nice, very good. Okay, we got Kyle in the house as well. Kyle, what up? How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Like Squirrel mentioned, a little 3-game right before a little bit of a break, All-Star break. So it's nice to kind of have that break ahead, but we still have some money to make tonight. So looking forward to breaking it down with you guys.
I love it. And when you get a 3-game slate, and maybe this is more of a tournament Squirrel question, are you less concerned about play the best players, and do you shift more into like game theory about how you're attacking this slate, Squirrel?
I think so. So like one thing I tend to do is I tend to be a lot more strict about not playing guys who don't share the court on the same team. Like I don't want to play, certain combinations. Like one thing I put in the article today, like I don't like the idea of playing like Taylor Hendricks or John Collins together in a lineup. They tend to sub in and out for each other. But I go deeper on that kind of thing on like small 3-game, 2-game slates, like NBA playoff type slates than I do during just like 12, 13 game slate.
Right. When you can just pick and choose the best plays from wherever. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Well, we like to start it off with just a general overview. We have plenty of time, 28 minutes, but it's only 3 games here. Kyle, do you want to give me a breakdown? Obviously, the Memphis news, the injuries issues are the big one, but is there anything else that we care about?
Honestly, we have a lot of news that we already got. I shouldn't even say a lot, actually, but the news that we were waiting on, we pretty much already got. The only thing we're really waiting on is Anthony Edwards, who's questionable. That's going to be the last game of the night. So that, I guess, is like the biggest speed bump on the slate in terms of waiting out news. But I don't think you necessarily need to worry about that too much. I mean, if I had to guess, I think he's going to play. He was at shoot around. So it sounds like he's going to play. But again, there's still wonky things can happen. They're 10-point favorites against Portland. So I guess it wouldn't be the craziest thing to give him a night off, but it's also about to be the All-Star break. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be a rest spot for him. So I would guess that he plays, but he is still questionable. As Squirrel alluded to, Memphis, they've been beat up by injuries all year long. I made a joke before we went live that I think like their 7 best players preseason are all out right now. They are just absolutely decimated, and they've been all year. They have a bunch of 10-day contract guys and G League type players. So there's some value there for sure. But it's also, a game where it has a 12.5-point spread. So definitely something to worry about there from a blowout perspective. But on a 3-game slate, I think it's a little bit more difficult to, try to play that narrative just because it is a good matchup for Milwaukee and it's good value on the Memphis side. So I think it's hard to, worry too much about a blowout on a 3-game slate. But I think that's pretty much the news. I mean, we already got the confirmation that Giannis and Dame are both going to play. In terms of the Golden State and Utah game, there isn't really a ton of news. Not a lot of news in the slate.
Okay, great. And maybe some of those Memphis value guys are dudes who would also still get run in a blowout. I assume there's at least a few of those. Yeah, we got.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good to know as well. Okay, Kyle, well, why don't you walk us through a FanDuel cash build? This show, by the way, is presented by FanDuel, so we always start there. Shout out to FanDuel for keeping it free for the people. We appreciate you, FanDuel. Kyle, let's jump into a build, and then Squirrel, I'll get your tournament takes shortly thereafter.
Yeah, so in terms of the FanDuel side, obviously, you do have the Memphis guys who are value, but you typically don't find the price points of FanDuel, going extremely cheap like they do on DraftKings more often. But you still have a couple guys on Memphis that really stand out from a cash game perspective as super cheap options. There's actually 3 of them that are between 4-1 and 4-2 on FanDuel. Jordan Goodwin, who I would definitely monitor the starting lineup, which it looks like we just got, and he is starting. So we were kind of wondering if it was going to be him or Gilliard. Goodwin starting, so it sounds like he's going to be in there for 28 to 30 minutes minimum, I would assume. But I think there's upside for more. So he's 4-2. I think you can play him in cash. Zaire Williams, who was let me double check. Yep, he is also starting. And then Lamar Stevens, who's not starting, but we do still project for, I believe, 25 or 26 minutes tonight. So all 3 of those guys are strong value options from Memphis that are 4-1 or 4-2 on FanDuel that definitely allow you to spend up for a couple of guys. But I think the spend up for me is obviously going to be Giannis on today's slate. It also kind of correlates as well with these Memphis guys. If this game does happen to stay close, I think Giannis absolutely crushes. And if that's the case, then I think it's just a great game environment. And we've seen this happen for Milwaukee in the past. We just had a couple days ago, we had the Heat with a few of their best players out, and they got blown out by the Heat. So crazy things happen in the NBA. So I wouldn't necessarily automatically write this game off as a blowout here. Another spend up I think you can also pair with Giannis in cash is Steph Curry at 9-4. He's definitely a better option on DraftKings from a scoring format perspective, but on a slate where you do have a ton of salary opened up and maybe you don't feel as comfortable, playing Anthony Edwards because from a cash perspective because of that Q tag, Steph I think is sort of the way to go as that secondary spend up option. So I would say those are kind of the core plays with those three Memphis value guys and the two spend ups, Giannis and Steph. And then there's also some other Memphis guys in play as well. Vince Williams is in play from a cash perspective. GG Jackson as well. Jackson is not starting. I don't think, Jackson's not starting, which there was a chance that he could have and would have made him an even stronger play. His projection might come down a little bit, but I still think you can make a case for him in cash. But Aldama is probably going to be the better cash game option from a Memphis perspective because he's $300 cheaper and starting. So Aldama, Vince Williams, those three cheap guys that I mentioned for Memphis, I think those are kind of the core Memphis cash options. Obviously, you can only play 4 of them on FanDuel, but definitely revolving I would say at least 3, but I think you're probably getting 4 Memphis guys in your cash game build, and then building on the 2 spend ups, Giannis and Steph.
Okay, very good. Squirrel, I love what Kyle said about how Giannis correlates really well with some of the Memphis guys. That makes a ton of sense to me. Is that an angle you're thinking about in tournaments?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like just more of a convenience thing. If Milwaukee was playing somebody else, I think I'd still be playing a ton of Giannis and still a ton of Memphis. But it's a nice little peace of mind thing.
Even better. That makes sense. Sure.
I think Giannis, you really just need the raw points potentially. Like I kind of said it. He could get there in 3 quarters tonight. His projection was 10 points higher than everybody else on the slate. And he might not play the 4th quarter, and he might still put up like 60 points, 55 points. Kind of hit just a median projection, and you need him in the winning lineup.
Right. Doesn't maybe get the flame emojis, but still gets you the raw point total that you need in order to get over 300 or whatever it'll take. Yeah,
this could be like on these smaller slates. I've seen like guys win tournaments with the snowflake, right?
Yeah. Wow.
Because just like nobody else at that position did anything either, So, and if Curry and Lillard have like mediocre games, then there's a good chance that Giannis gets there in one of his mediocre games, which averages about 10 points more than those guys. Yeah. I'm like definitely not looking to avoid Giannis tonight. But it is an interesting tournament slate. There are some pivots you can go to.
Okay. All right. Well, walk me through, kind of a FanDuel tournament build, or at least what you're looking at and thinking about.
Yeah. So it's just kind of everybody else. You can play Damian Lillard. Keontae George has really lost steam throughout the day. I thought he was going to be my highest owned player when I was writing my article. I still like the idea of playing a good chunk of him on both sites. I think he's like the most underpriced, like solid player on both sites. It's just he's kind of been overwhelmed by this Memphis value. I put Jordan Goodwin as a guy that might not get into the game in my article. Well, now he's starting. And that was before Luke Kennard got declared out. It was before Jackson got ruled out. So, Jordan Goodwin is going to see actually a lot of ownership now. And so maybe he's a guy you want to get under the field on rather than like a sneaky tournament option. Maybe you want to play some Jacob Gilyard and not some Jordan Goodwin, just because I think Memphis is going to stick with whoever is doing well. Or maybe you just want to, skip both of them, right? And say this game, ends up being a complete clown show and you just want to go with Keontae George and actually go just under the field on Memphis in general. At shooting guard, I kind of like Brendan Przemski. I had said, I really want to get to this Golden State Utah game because it's got a close spread. It's got by far the highest point total of the night. So I like the idea of going over the field on this game and hoping that the Milwaukee Memphis game might end 110 to 85 or something like that. And we don't actually want the value pieces from that game. So I like playing like Brandon Przemski. I like playing the young Warriors like Przemski and Kuminga. Maybe even going to some Lester Quinones rather than playing like Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. At small forward, you're going to get like some of the Memphis guys like Vince Williams. I don't mind pivoting to like, Kuminga, Podziemski, Lauri Markkanen, that same game. I'm kind of assuming Anthony Edwards is going to play. It's, the day before the All-Star break. I think he's in the skills competition. So, and I think he's on the All-Star team as well. So you kind of figure that maybe makes him a little bit more likely to get in there just, for this final game before the break. Power forward, like I think Santi Aldama is going to get a lot of ownership. I like maybe playing Lamar Stevens. Instead, he's like 4,200. A lot of these Memphis guys, I think like both Lamar Stevens and Jordan Goodwin, like their first game with the team, I think was yesterday. So, just keep that in mind. But yeah, Giannis is definitely the spend up at power forward. At center, I'm getting a lot of Rudy Gobert. Like Portland, like doesn't rebound. Maybe some of that might statistically be from when DeAndre Ayton was out for a stretch. But I don't mind getting to Rudy Gobert. You can play some Draymond Green. He's only 6,500. John Collins, I think, is a good play, or you can pivot to Walker Kessler. But like I wrote up, Collins is kind of the better play on FanDuel. He's cheaper on FanDuel, whereas on DraftKings, Walker Kessler is the one that's cheaper.
Gotcha. Anything else you want to go over here?
Yep.
No? Okay. Then with that, I suppose we can kick it over to DK. Excuse me. I did mention the show is presented by FanDuel. If you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Vermont, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Getting a problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Again, big thanks to FanDuel for keeping this show free for you. We did get some FanDuel questions coming in, but let's kick it to DK real fast, and then we'll just try to tackle all the questions at once. Kyle, is there anything different on DK as far as how the build itself works out?
Just a little bit, just because it's a little bit easier to get to sort of that third tier sort of spend up option. I guess not really a spend up, but I guess like the higher mid tier.
Sure.
So guys like Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, I think you actually get to some of these guys in cash just because of how cheap some of the options from Memphis are. They're just a little bit cheaper in comparison to them on FanDuel. And the positional stuff is a little bit different as well. Like Lamar Stevens, you can play him at center and power forward. Gigi Jackson is under 5K, so he's a guy who I think is pretty interesting. Even though he's not starting, I still think he's in play for cash. Zaire Williams is 3.7. Goodwin's 4.4. Keontae George, I still think is cash viable at 4.7. Obviously, he's been starting and playing more minutes as of late, so still think you can play him in cash. And then obviously, I still think you want to build around Giannis and Steph in cash, but for the most part, it is fairly similar. I just think the main key difference is that the cheap guys are a little bit more cheap, so that way you can sort of fit in that third sort of spend up option. And I do like Rudy Gobert right now. Rudy Gobert is going to be in my cash lineup. Obviously, he would get better if Edwards is out. I don't think he will sit, but really strong matchup for Gobert. Not overthinking the potential blowout here, just because of the fact that 2 of the 3 games have a similar spread in terms of blowout risk. But the rest I think is pretty similar.
Okay, very good. Well, then I will bring in Squirrel. You have any thoughts, any differing or similar opinions?
Yeah, I think maybe what you want to keep in mind is 2 things. And Kyle kind of alluded to this. If the prices go down cheaper, so you tend to get these like really cheap guys just jammed into your lineups. I'm going to try to take it easy on the Memphis tonight. I think it's one of my strategies is like there's actually enough value without this game, being like a complete value fest that like there's enough value on Utah on these other teams that you can go. You don't need to be playing like 5-6 Memphis guys in your lineup, even though they're all 3,500 or 4,400 or whatever. It's just a couple of value differences. Like I said, Walker Kessler is really cheap on DraftKings compared to FanDuel, whereas like John Collins is more expensive. I also get a lot more like Jonathan Kuminga on DraftKings, whereas getting like a lot more Brandon Podziemski on FanDuel. I'm actually getting a lot more Steph Curry on DraftKings than on FanDuel. I think like there's a greater difference in the price between Curry and Lillard on FanDuel than on DraftKings. So and Curry gets the 3-point bonus. I mean, both of them are 3-point shooters, but Curry gets like the extra, the 3-point bonus on DraftKings like nobody else. So there's something to keep in mind. And I mean, it's basically the same guys at all the positions. Getting a little bit more Anthony Edwards kind of naturally, just assuming he's going to be in. Getting maybe a little bit more Lauri Markkanen as well.
Can we talk about some of the cheap value and maybe try to rank them, or just for tournament's sake, Squirrel, tell me the guys that maybe you're a little bit lower on the field than what's projected, or higher. I'd like it both ways, really.
Yeah, I will say that it's a little difficult to know what the ownership is really going to be like on the slate, because like so many of the guys are unknown. So it's almost like a test of like who's using projections and who's using which projections, and and like who's really into the game theory, who just maybe doesn't know like what Memphis' starting lineup is.
Right.
I would say you want to go probably with all of the starters first. So like in terms of value, probably Jordan Goodwin probably is the best. Then maybe like Trey Jemison. I like Lamar Stevens. And Zaire Williams, he's 3,700. He's starting. He's actually like been with the team kind of consistently.
Yeah.
After that, it's really just the bench guys. Like I do think it's interesting to maybe bump up the projection on Gilliard a little bit and set a rule that you don't want to play him with Jordan Goodwin. And then you've got some interesting lineups, just in case something happens there. But yeah, and then like a little bit down now on like Gregory Jackson and Lamar, like bumping down Lamar Stevens a little bit now that they're not starting.
Gotcha. And do we know, like, we're trying to project guys that don't really play a whole lot. We don't have a whole history of like, do we know which of these guys are shooters and scorers, and which of these guys are going to sit in a corner and not do a whole hell of a lot?
There's not necessarily anybody that we know is not going to like do anything, because like there's only 9 of them. So we, on a 1 game sample, which is kind of what like 1 game kind of yesterday with some of these guys. And then, with the 1 day sample tonight, which is what we're concerned with.
Yeah.
I'm not going too deep into that. Like,
okay.
It's really hard. I think it's really hard to get an idea of like points per minute.
Who they are.
Kind of, like context, like we're going to face tonight.
Right. Okay. All right. Interesting. Good thoughts. Okay, guys, we have 12 minutes here until we get to lock. That gives us plenty of time for questions. If we run out of questions, we might just call it here. But we should note here, SimLabs is one of the coolest things we've got going on. It is the expert DFS lineup generating tool from RotoGrinders and Fantasy Labs. You can use it for NBA. Just takes a couple of clicks. You can have hundreds of well-built correlated lineups for whatever contest type you're playing. If you're running out of time, this is the quickest, sharpest way to get in a whole bunch of lineups. Highly recommend it. All combo and NBA subscribers have access to NBA SimLabs, and we've got PGA happening as well. So some pretty cool stuff. Let's see what we got question-wise, starting in the Discord as always. FanDuel single entry. Squirrel, Dame or Curry do have Giannis. Dame or Curry. Oh, okay. So he does have Giannis, and he wants to know Dame or Curry to go along with Giannis.
I would, obviously you can go with either. I think if you have the money, go with Curry. And I kind of wrote this in my article that like, and that was before we knew we were going to be playing a ton of Memphis guys, no matter what. But I was saying like, unless you have a Memphis guy in your lineup, if you're playing Giannis, play Curry if you can. If you're not playing Giannis, maybe you want to play Lillard, right? And say, well, it's a Damian Lillard explosion game. Now you probably do have some Memphis guys in your lineup, but I would say if you're playing Giannis, probably play Curry if you can. Like Curry's got a good matchup too.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Omar says FanDuel GPP. Most of these are going to be GPP questions because no offense, Kyle, but not many lunatics are playing cash on a 3-game slate.
Understandable.
Yes, but good for you. FanDuel GPP, Vince Williams and Banton, or Zaire and Kuminga, Squirrel.
I'd go with Zaire and Kuminga. I like the idea of getting to Banton. He's kind of an interesting play, but and he's like one of the only like Portland guys I'm really interested in. But I think Kuminga and Zaire are just projecting too well.
Okay. Shout out to A. Goodman in the Discord, who is bringing in a cash question. You're not the only one, Kyle. DK Cash, any interest in Wiggy? Is Wiggy okay?
Not for cash. I don't think I'd be going there for cash myself.
Yeah. Okay. What else do we got? DK GPP question. Vince Williams and Naz Reid, or Klay Thompson and Kessler?
Sorry, what were the options?
It was Vince Williams and Naz Reid, or Klay Thompson and Kessler.
I'd go with the first one. It was Naz Reid and who?
And Vince Williams.
Yeah, Vince Williams. So I would go with the first one. Like a little bit down on Klay tonight. like, it's the night before the All-Star break. Why not? Like, they're not going to push them, right? So I'd go with the first one.
Okay. DK GPP, Brolo or Walker Kessler. This was on DK. I think you liked Walker Kessler's price more over there, but maybe there's an ownership thing. I don't know.
No, I'd go with Walker Kessler over Brolo. And like Kessler is projecting a little bit better, I think. And I think it makes sense that he would probably be the guy to get extra minutes added into it. Oh, they're on the team.
Yep. Smoke and Jay says FanDuel GPP scroll. I've got 4K for power forward. Is Hendricks okay, or do I need to make some adjustments?
No, it's like a little bit of a risky play, but I don't mind it at all.
Okay, great. Freddie says, is Ant sitting tonight? If so, is not in play for single entry DK. Ant is questionable. We don't know if he's sitting. Our lean, at least, and we don't know, but the lean would be that he probably plays. You don't need to rest the dude before the All-Star break. He probably plays.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so. Yeah. I'm planning.
But if he doesn't, we might as well discuss that. Is not in play? Gobert gets a bump? What happens if he doesn't play?
It's probably not Kyle Anderson. But I still don't think those guys would necessarily be as good as the Memphis value that we had.
Yeah. Okay. A few more questions coming in from the YouTube. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit us with a little thumbs up for this free content that we got coming your way. Scrolling up just a little bit here. Curry, Draymond, or Pods on FanDuel. Curry, Draymond, Pods, FanDuel. These seem like very different price dudes, but Squirrel, do your best to handle that.
I mean, I would go with Curry over. I go with Curry, then Pods, then Draymond.
Okay, great. Would you play Nah or Banton on FanDuel as a cheap pivot, Squirrel?
I'd go with Banton. And like Banton is the guy that's left from the guys I thought were going to be sneaky plays that I think might actually still be a little bit sneaky. Played like 26 and 25 minutes over the last 2 nights for Portland. So yeah, I'd go with Banton.
Okay. Getting a lot of questions about Nah here. A lot of people like hoping Edwards is out. So this question from Steven is, do you play Zaire Williams or Nah hoping Edwards is out?
I'd go. So it's like we know Zaire Williams is starting right now. we don't have to wait on the injury news. So I would go with Zaire Williams.
Okay. Cincy Reds Girl says, hey, I never know on these small slates how many players I can play from the same team. I have this issue too. I always jam in like 6 players from one team like a donkey. And I don't think you're supposed to do that. So how many can I play from the same team? And then she says Golden State, for example, today. I assume most people are going to be heavier on Memphis, but Squirrel, what's your limit on some of these teams?
They're generally 4. Like if I'm playing 4, I probably want somebody from the other team. That happens pretty naturally though, because like the teams you're going to be getting, like there's only 6 teams. And like, so if you're playing like 4 Minnesota guys, I would definitely not do that unless you're playing like a Portland guy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. Great. Okay. Kyle, we got a question right to Kyle. We brought his name up and all. Kyle, who are you overweight on DK? So as you look at your ownership compared to what projected ownership is, who do you think you're most overweight on?
Most overweight, it's probably going to be Lamar Stevens, just because I'm pretty close to just having him in all of my lineups. So, and we have him for 34% projected ownership, so I'll have probably double that. Goodwin will also be well over if he's actually going to come in at 33%. I think that number probably comes in a little bit higher, but with some of the late news. And then Steph as well would be. I really like Giannis as well, but I'll probably have more compared to the field Steph than Giannis.
Okay, I love it. All right, DK single entry GPP. Scroll back to here. Giannis Kuminga or Giannis Gobert?
Ooh, I mean, I think I'd go Giannis. Giannis Gobert. Sorry, yeah.
Okay. All right. What else do we have? DK GPP, last piece here. It's a 3v3, I think. Or maybe he's just trying to figure out the last piece between these guys, I think. Zaire Williams, Lamar Stevens, Kamara, or Banton.
Sorry, so I'm picking one out of...
I think you're just picking one. Yeah, Zaire Williams, Lamar Stevens, Kamara, or Banton.
The first one. Who was Zaire Williams, right?
Yeah, Zaire Williams.
Yeah. Actually, Zaire Williams or second one was
Lamar Stevens.
the toss up. I'd go Zaire.
Yeah. Okay. Fred says, Squirrel, can you build an optimal without Giannis? Can you build an optimal?
Well, yeah. I mean, you could definitely do a lineup without Giannis. I think that's reasonable. I prefer Giannis as like my top spend up. But it's certainly possible he fails. So.
Okay. All right. DK GPP, any interest in Sexton?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the game that's the faster pace, like the higher total game. So I think you can definitely get there.
Okay. What else do we have? FanDuel. We'll just give this one to Kyle just because I don't want him sitting there being bored for the next 4 minutes. Gobert, Ayton, or Kessler on FanDuel? Gobert, Ayton, or Kessler?
Let me just check their prices real quick. If price doesn't matter, I'll take Gobert. But if the 900, yeah, I'll just take Gobert because they're pretty close in price. So yeah.
Nice. And then King Dash with a cash question. Here we go. This is FanDuel cash power forward, 65 and under. Basically like, all right, Collins or Draymond.
Yeah, so I've got them projected at the exact same number, but I kind of like the idea. I think Draymond might end up being higher owned. I like the idea of playing Collins. I mean, not that Collins is like some rookie, but I prefer going with the younger guys in this particular situation of, hey, we're all about to go on a break,
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. Kyle, FanDuel, go. Oh, nope. Did that one. Get with it, Kevin. Can you fade Giannis due to a blowout? We kind of talked about this.
I mean, you can, yeah. That's more like, do you want to fade Giannis and then think of a reason why you're fading him? Like, blowout would be one of the reasons. I think that might be, like, I wouldn't say, oh, might be a blowout. You can't play Giannis. If you want to fade Giannis, you can.
Yeah. But really, you would rather just let other people make that mistake. Like in your builds, you'd rather
let
somebody else fade. Yeah. All right. GPP, Scoot or Clarkson from Brandon in the YouTube chat?
I'd go with Clarkson.
Hoosier saying banners with the most important question. Is anybody beating McClung this weekend? I didn't realize he's running it back in the dunk contest. Anybody beating Mac McClung?
I didn't realize that either.
I don't know.
Honestly, I don't even know who's in the dunk contest.
I looked it up today. None of the guys I think on the slate are in the dunk contest. It's like Jacob Toppin. It's like Obi Toppin's brother. Mac McClung. And I think Jaylen Brown is like the biggest name.
Yeah. And Jaime Jaquez Jr. from Miami.
Yeah, that's right.
Is in there as well. So that's kind of cool. And the answer is no. None of those dudes are beating my boy McClung. What else do we got here? Less than 2 minutes here until lock. Would you play Sexton or Vince in a DK GPP and cash? Sexton or Vince, Squirrel?
I think Vince Williams.
Okay. Smoke and Jay, feel it in your plums. Scrub play of the night. This is for both fellas. So we're starting with you, Kyle. Your feel it in your plums value play.
I might be stealing it from Squirrel because I know he was talking about him earlier, but I think Banton is the guy who I would go in that direction.
Squirrel?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like feeling it in the plums, that's the guy that's like more of just a gut instinct. Like there's nothing you can really project there. But I would go with like Banton as being the guy that's maybe going to be overlooked. If I got to pick somebody else, like maybe Trey Jemison, there's a good chance he just gets into foul trouble immediately, but I think he'll be like the lower owned of like a lot of the Memphis guys. They could do well.
Nice. We still got 1 minute until lock. DK GPP 4 Memphis with Steven Squirrel or 3 Memphis with Kyle Anderson and Naw.
I don't like. I'm not really getting to like Naw and Kyle Anderson, and the reason is I'm just assuming Anthony Edwards is in, and if he's not, I'll redo my lineup with whatever like space for Naw and Kyle Anderson I can get. But we got the Memphis guys right now, right? Like that game's about to start. So I would go with those guys over like trying to presume maybe Anthony Edwards is going to be out.
Gotcha. Okay, Kyle, this is for cash and GPP. I'll let you answer this one. Giannis Kamara or Edwards Kuminga?
I'm not a big fan of Kamara tonight, but I'm looking for somebody else in that range. Maybe I guess I would still go with the Giannis side just because I think he's so much better than Edwards. I think we have him for like 17 or 18 points more, but not a big fan of Kamara though.
Okay, we got another cash question for you, Kyle. Right before lock, FanDuel cash. Scoot, Edwards, Ayton, or Curry, Podziemski, Gobert?
I'll take the second side.
Very good. And with that, we have hit the lock. Good stuff. Excellent work, guys. Thanks for hanging with us here on this very late slate. Squirrel, Kyle, I appreciate you guys jumping on.
That was a blast.
Yeah, that was good. It was easy. It wasn't too bad here. We are not going to see y'all for a while, at least not the NBA Crunch Time crew. So please do, everybody at home, enjoy that All-Star break, and we will be back with you as things resume. I assume we've got other sports going on. We got hockey content. We're going to ramp that up, Squirrel.
Yeah, and well, I don't do hockey, but we do have UFC.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, this is probably my shortest amount of time between two shows on different days because I'm on the 11 a.m. with Blender tomorrow. We'll be talking some UFC, but it's pretty big, good high quality UFC event this weekend, UFC 298. So.
People, that's the one sport I've never done. I don't really watch UFC, but everybody really enjoys it. I don't know. It seems to be a good one for DFS.
It's a weirdly good sweat because like in other sports, you're rooting for your guy to like hit a 3-pointer, like hit a home run, score a touchdown. This one, you're like, knock that guy up. Just hit him flat, knock him
Beat the shit out of that man.
Yeah. So it's like very primal. You watch on Saturday night, it's good. It's a good time.
It's kind of unfair because now Isaiah Stewart's going to get suspended for doing the same thing, right?
Yeah. What's the deal? Yeah.
I guess it's not quite the same.
All right. Good stuff, guys. As always, we're going to bounce on that here. So for Kyle and for Squirrel, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you after the break. You have been crunched.